Hey guys, this is Tina B.
And Charmaine G.
We're here to talk about the messiness of life. It's ugly.
And it's raw.
It's real.
And it's a freaking game.
It's whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
This is us.
And our gift to you.
Hello and welcome. Hello, wackos. Another Tuesday. Here we are in studio. Actually, I'm in studio. Charmania, the Charmaniac, is out of town. So she's joining us by phone.
Everyone.
Hi, Charmaine.
Hi, Tina B.
It's so
Thanks
weird
for having me remote.
I like it better when you're here, just so you know, for future reference.
I know. I like the live in person. I can read you. I can observe you. And
Heck
right now,
yeah.
I feel like I'm flying blind.
I know, it's kooky, isn't it? You're in the snow right
doable.
now. You don't have to say where you are, but it snowed by you.
It snowed 16 inches.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So I am not a snow goer. I definitely want to retire in the heat. So hats off to whoever likes to live in this environment. But I'm definitely a beach and a sun goer girl.
I love the snow. I think there's something very romantic and cool about it. I like a cloudy day. I
Yeah,
like
maybe
rain.
one night.
Yeah, I
one
know.
night.
Living in it is a whole
Yeah.
different. Shoveling your car out of it and all of that is a whole different deal.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Hell no.
yeah.
No. Hell no. Hell to the no on that.
Okay, so we're doing something a little different. Not only is Charmaine coming to us from a remote location because work, her actual job took her out of town, I have a male guest. So it's somebody that I've known for a long time, and I'll do an introduction for him in a little while. Last week we spoke about domestic violence, and the intention of this podcast is not to bum everybody out. It takes a certain amount of finesse to talk about the painful yuckiness of life and also sort of make light of it. That's not always easy to achieve, so bear with us. I laugh at a lot of the stuff that I've been through because I'm on the other side of it. So last week we talked about domestic violence, as I stated, and I talked a lot about the problem. I talked a lot about the circumstances that surrounded me as a kid, and then some of the stuff that I kind of brought into my adulthood. But I really felt like we didn't spend. We could go on and on about this subject probably, and there's so many different facets and so many different things. But I really wanted to talk about the solution. That's important to me because you can hear about the problem for so long, but it's like what happened and how did it change and all of that good stuff. And that's true across the board with any subject. So that's why Charmaine and I decided that we wanted to do one more episode. And then I will be bringing a male perspective in. And I want to say just carefully and lovingly that this is somebody that I care deeply for. He's one of my oldest friends. And he is willing to come on here and speak to us about a time when he committed domestic violence and what he did to come out of that. And so that's brave, if you ask me. So his name is Andrew. He will be joining us in the next segment after our break. So how you doing, Charmaine?
I'm doing well.
Still
Thank
with
you.
me?
I really want to echo the fact that when we deep dive into these things of lived experiences, it's to connect with people that are out there maybe currently struggling or that have a history, that we can be aware that even our neighbors, our coworkers, people that are very connected to us in a way, that they have that support system. They know that nothing in this world is lived alone. We're human, and we've gone through experiences because it's part of our plan, and it helps build us in resilience. And I have to say that I'm very proud of Tina to speak up about this such a sensitive topic. However, she's come to the comfort levels that she's had. It's not been an overnight thing. It's been an entire life experience. So it starts with acknowledging and acceptance. So I look forward to the part two. I think she's brave enough, more brave than I could ever be.
Stop.
I have to say that this is a very important topic, and understanding Andrew's piece in it, not just the male perspective, but the statistics alone, it's like 1 in 3 women experience intimate violence, domestic violence, and 1 in 4 men. So it's not a gender-based situation.
No.
A lot of people feel like the weaklings are the women, but that is actually not the case.
I think that we talked about this last week too, that men probably, there's a certain amount of humility involved in that. And with the people that I've spoken to, that there's not a lot of men that want to broadcast that they've been a victim of, or that they're a survivor of domestic violence. It's not as,
Right.
they don't want it, they're not as open as to talk about it, I think. And that's just probably more, that's even a human thing. 'Cause I got to tell you, it's not pretty. It's not, it's just not a fun topic. But
no, and the mindset that someone's in a current abusive situation isn't rational. I mean, their thought patterns, their distortions, their reasoning, everything is miscued when you can look outside the box and clearly see that there is a huge situation going on here. That person that's experiencing it does not see it that way.
no, and the more you cut yourself off from family, friends, and the outside world, the easier it is to believe you deserve to be in that situation. It's really maddening. So yes, as Charmaine said, I'm going to reiterate, excuse me, I have a little froggy in my throat. On average, more than 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the United States will experience rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner. So, and 1 in 10 high school students has experienced physical violence from a partner in the last year alone. Oh, statistics like these demand that we all commit ourselves to ending abuse for good. So how do we do that? I felt last week, I was telling you that I felt sort of complicit. I could not leave. I could not leave. It was so difficult for me. I was not speaking to family. I had isolated myself from my family and moved somewhere where I didn't know anybody but him for a while.
Right.
And so I was in that. And I had said I sort of built a little cage around myself, I guess, not knowing it. I could never even see that then. There was a time when when it got bad enough and I knew that I wanted to get out of the relationship and I had to put a plan in place. I want to also just state that I was always free to go. He didn't necessarily lock me up anywhere. I was an emotional prisoner in my life. I was still pretty much a volunteer for the most part, but I was so damaged that I couldn't get up I didn't have enough self-esteem, whatever you want to call it, enough gumption to get up and move out of there. So when I thought about why, which I spent a lot of time thinking about, how could I not, the whole mind fuck, if you will, that you put yourself through. You're weak, you're this, you're that, you're all of that stuff. It wasn't until a light bulb went off for me where I was like, okay, I have to leave this relationship, and the feelings that surrounded that action, just the thought of doing that, were brutal. I didn't want to feel that pain. I didn't want to feel the pain of leaving a relationship, having failed or not conquered it, or whatever that little thing was that was going on with me. It's so silly when I say it out loud, because this is the truth now. It was easier for me to stay than it was for me to think about walking through the pain, in a nutshell.
Right.
Okay, so it was, then just because I was aware of that did not mean that, like the next day I woke up and went, okay, so there's the solution, and I just kind of, skipped out and didn't have any problems. I had to really look at what the problem was. I had to look at where was I broken inside of me that I was making the decision to stay in an unsafe situation, as opposed to walking through the pain of leaving this relationship. So, right. And what does that take? That takes a lot of therapy and a lot of trusting of someone else in the therapy seat telling me, look, let's start breaking this down a little bit. Let's start looking at these different patterns of behavior and so on and so forth. And for me, It came back to, it's so cliche to say this, but I had... I had abandonment issues. People I trusted and loved and turned my trust over to had abruptly left my world. So I didn't trust people so much. And I think even deeper than that, Charmaine, I think I didn't trust me because I too was a runner. I too could be abusive and not nice, controlling and all of that.
I think so, Tina. I mean, when we're children and we're young, our home is our first examples to learn how to have relationships and attach to relationships healthy. So I've even spoke to my parents about this because, I mean, we all have to admit that, even if you grew up in a home that was Leave It to Beaver or, the Bundys,
Right.
that it was like, it literally is about how we're taught to have relationships, and it's by the nurturing, the affection, the communication, what we see examples as far as like physical, and my attachment has a flaw because of the emotional inavailability to trust people. I'm growing as an adult. I figured it out, thank goodness, in this lifetime. So it makes sense, Tina, that you don't know how to trust, and when it comes to things being unhealthy, that is your norm,
Yeah. Well,
it was your norm.
It definitely isn't anymore. And I've said this a million times, and I really want to say this. I do not regret. There's some things I wish would not have happened. Of course, I'm not wishing this on, abuse on anybody. When I look at my path, everything was important to have taken place because that's what it took for me to become aware. So, it's like I was going over this with my daughter a couple of weeks ago. She had a little fender bender that's going to cost her a little bit of money, and she had to make some decisions about insurance and about, which way she wanted to go. Did she want to pay cash for the repairs and all this stuff? And she was just like, I'm so mad at myself that I even did that. Like, why was I even driving like that? Why do I drive like that? And I said, because that's how we learn. Like, we learn by walking through that pain of consequences. That's how we learn. We don't learn by mom telling you. I said, I've told you a million times not to drive so fast, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, did you listen? And she said, no. So, I mean, it's a simple concept, really hard and a tough pill to swallow for sure. But it's the same thing. So walking through that stuff has built my character. It's really made me see at what is acceptable for me. How do I want to treat myself? What situations do I want to place myself in? It stops being about the other person. Does that make sense? I'm not articulating that quite the way that I intended to, but
I believe. So my thing is this, that like you could even be so far into the healing stage, but you still may have, talking about it triggers. You may still have things that are residual of labeling yourself as, instead of I love that you call yourself a survivor, because some people, years later are still victimized in many, many, many ways because of the post-traumatic stress disorders that are caused from, emotional neglect, physical violence, sexual violence. So when we put our own labels on ourselves, it totally makes sense what you're saying. So, and I think a lot of people could definitely identify with that, even if they don't see. I call myself in my second lifetime for a reason. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not how I identify.
Right. It's difficult when I look back. I used to look back on that with a lot of shame. And now I don't, not at all. I look back and go, wow, I really, I came through that and it changed me. It changed my character. I mean, I could have done with a lot less bruises, or a lot less violence that we were showing the kids and, creating an unsafe home when all we really ever wanted was a safe home.
Right.
But it's just the way that it is. And I wouldn't change any of it because I've learned a lot about who I am. And I always have to credit my husband when I'm talking on these podcasts. Greg, Mr. Greg, he does deserve it. He taught me a while ago. He talks a lot about there's opposition in all things. And so I know from being in a really dark place and in a relationship that was brutal on both ends. We were not good to each other. Love was not part of the equation in there at all. Well, it stopped being about that, of course.
Yeah.
But now I know what I definitely don't want because I've experienced it. So now I can appreciate being in a loving relationship and the back and forth and the give and take of that because I know the opposite of that.
Well, yes, and you're getting to live that experience. You know, I'm going to raise this fact. It's a sure fact that relationships with abusers do not start off with, like, the climax. It definitely is, you know, a mask and like something that they have a very loving personality. And so there's a connection there, almost a reliable, intimate connection. And then that's when the cycle starts, you know, and it's a pretty basic cycle when it comes to the control wheel. Are you familiar with the control wheel? And speaking through this, I mean, it's 4 simple stages of the tensions building, the detective, the gaining the evidence to build the case, to reach the incident where it turns into the climax. It turns into the nasty argument or physical, brutal blowout. And then it turns into the remorse and the reconciliation, which could look like gifts or almost like act like it didn't happen. Let's go on vacation. Let's plan something.
Makeup sex.
Makeup sex. Good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that, for the abuser, that's what's going on in their cycle. And then it turns to the calm, like they get to actually have that normalcy feeling. But when you're the abusee, that's not what's going on. That power wheel is definitely different. There's so much fear and everything that's going on in between all those stages that the psychology effect that happens to somebody, it's so hard to break. 1 in 12 times, 12 times is typically the average period that it takes an abusee to leave someone. The first time, tell me about your first time, Tina.
The first time I left?
Tested the water. Yeah, when you tested the water.
Oh, I did a whole thing. I did a whole moving out here. Then the abuse started, and I literally packed my whole house up and put things in storage and moved in with a friend. And then we got back together, and I'd moved back in with him. I lived out of boxes for a few years because that situation was so unmanageable. I could not stay away from it. I could not. So there was the initial time, but I will tell you, we were married, I think, for 8 years. We were more separated in that marriage than we actually lived together. Like if you clumped them all the time that it was quite sad, very sad actually. And neither of us being able to really let go of it. It was hugely dysfunctional. So I lived out of boxes for a long time. I would leave and find my own place, and then soon I'd be inviting him in, and there would be it was that sticks in my throat a little bit. It does. It sticks in my throat a little bit. But it's true.
Well, and it is a cycle. It's hard to rationalize now that how could I let that happen feeling, but that it's very telling that when you're running from a situation or you're leaving a situation, that you have to full on disconnect from that in every which way and put yourself in an environment that you're in a healthy place with, everything is available at your fingertips these days, a phone call, addresses. You can access GPS, people's other devices.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Your emails, they can get into your stuff. They can view who you're talking to and who you're texting. It's so at their fingertips that you almost have to go off grid, you know?
Yeah. It was like, people start started leaving my life too. Like it was like being on one of those merry-go-rounds in the park, you know, the thing where you somebody pushes and pushes and you start out kind of in the middle and then you make your way out to the end and eventually you're just like hanging off the side of it because it's going
and then you're
so
gonna
fast.
fly off of
Yeah,
it.
that's how people were leaving my life. Like I had this close-knit set of wonderful women and men in my life, and then the faster that shit spun, people just started bailing out. Bye, I'm done. Okay, she left. Yay! Oh my gosh! Oh shit, he's back. Bye, I gotta go. I'm out. It's a very lonely place to be, and you set it up. I set it up like that, just behind the not being able to leave. So once I discovered that I could leave, and I did, and the process was slow. I want to just say that there were books that I read that were Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love was a book that I read. I have 3 copies of it because I've worn it out so much. I have read that, but yeah, I would take it in the tub with me. Like it's so dog-eared and pages are ripping out, and it was a resource book for me. The way that she spoke about her life and the dysfunction that she had in her relationships with men and wanting to break that cycle appealed to me. Now, I'm not saying that there was any domestic violence in that book. That's not the direction I'm going. That book gave me hope. It gave me hope to know that I could be spinning out in a relationship and really not know what the hell I'm doing and being codependent and all of those other, you know, recovery words, that she just took herself out of a certain situation and immersed herself in a solution. And that appealed to me. It's always been appealing to me. And so, yes, I used,
hope and light will always empower no matter what darkness you're in. You know, the light absorbs the darkness. So if it's a book, if it's a friend that you've thrown off the merry-go-round, it should never stop to keep trying to dig your way out, you know?
Yeah, and my kids slept with me a lot too. There were a lot of nights where we would be watching a movie and they'd fall asleep, and like in the morning they'd go, why didn't you put us in our bed? And I'd be like, you know, because I kind of enjoyed just having you there, you know. I learned to fill the void and that whatever that place that I was looking to fill in a relationship, I was starting to find in other places. And I also have to say artwork. Artwork was really big for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you should post some of your artwork.
I have posted a couple of things, but I have plenty more. I have plenty more that we can leak out into there. But that's a place where I can find some meditation and be real quiet and lose myself in drawing and being just quiet.
It's
just
very
quiet.
therapeutic.
Oh my goodness, hugely therapeutic.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
Second time leaving. Tell me what that
Second
looked like.
time leaving, we moved to Texas and to be near his father who was ailing. We were pulling a geographic. That's what we were doing. We're like, okay, well, let's get the hell out of here. We've burned so many bridges, both of us. The cops all know us. Like, let's just, you know, let's take the kids. It was literally weeks after Samantha was born, and we went to stay with his dad. Now, talk about isolating yourself. I literally moved to the middle of the freaking southern United States, somewhere I had never been. And with this guy who was not worthy of an ounce of my trust. And we were both nuts, really. And so now we have the kids involved, his daughter, my daughter, our daughter together. And we were there probably 2 months. And we were there for 2 months. And one day we got into a fight in the kitchen and he pushed me off the porch. That was when his dad asked me what I did, if I deserved it. And in the middle of Oklahoma, I took my stuff the next night and put everything in storage and packed the car up with my children. I was still breastfeeding Samantha and drove all the way back to the West Coast. And that was the second time that I left. And then we started wiggling our way back into each other's lives. Like probably a good year went by before we were together again. And then, I took him back after that too. Bitch. All right, we come back. I'm going to have Andrew. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to know. I want to know how many times it took you, Tina.
Okay, you'll know. All right, thank you.
And what was the break, the call, the straw, the brush?
This is Whack-A-Mole with Tina B and Charmaine G. Raw discussion about the messiness of life. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Whack-A-Mole. We welcome you back to Whack-A-Mole. Raw discussions about the messiness of life. Now, here are your hosts, Tina B and Charmaine G.
Okay, we're back. Tina's challenged technologically. We're going to try to get Mr. Hayden on the phone here. Mr.
I
Andrew
can hear
Hayden.
Andrew, Tina.
Can you?
I can hear him.
Andrew, I didn't know I had you. Okay, here we are.
Oh,
Yay!
because you just keep talking.
I know.
We're listening.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, so let's do a little introduction. Andrew and I
Sure.
met back in the 90s. We met in a 12-step program. Can I say that? Too late. I already did.
Yeah.
Back in 93, 94, somewhere around there. And we've just...
94.
Was it 94? He remembers
Yeah.
way more than I do. I don't know how much I like that. Anyway, we met in 94 and we've been friends and been in one another's lives in some fashion or another since then.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you're here. Welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Well,
Oh,
thank you.
good. What'd you do today?
You know, I was in court all day.
Mm.
Well, not all day, but half of the day. You know, just doing. I'm a criminal prosecutor, and I was doing criminal prosecuting.
Oh, nice.
Andrew, do
I'm
you
even
mind
sure
telling
that's
me
a word.
Andrew, what do you mind telling us what state you're in?
I'm in Colorado.
Okay. Okay.
He's in like
So,
the
you know-
southeastern tip of Colorado.
Right. I'm just at in the plains. I'm not in the mountain part of Colorado. I'm in the plains.
Okay. I'm in Denver right now, and I am not a fan of the snow. I'm just going to put it that way.
Oh, well, you didn't get that much snow up there, so that was good.
It's enough for me. It's definitely enough for me. But the reason why I asked where you're at is because you see probably what goes on in the world pretty frequently with the job, with the field that you serve in, don't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, all manner of life, right? Both the good parts and the tragic parts. So, yeah.
Right.
How do you get a lot of DV cases monthly? Just ballpark it.
I don't know. In front of me, I probably get 10 cases that are DV a month.
Wow.
You know, I've tried everything from, you know, yelling at each other, you know, obscene words, or bothering, you know, continuing to keep call your ex or significant other to the point where you're harassing them, to murder. So I've done it.
Yeah.
And then the whole penalty.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is that right? Did I say it? I don't think I even said that word right.
Say it again.
So
No.
listen to this, you guys. National statistics say on average nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, that seems right. Do
Yeah.
you have the statistics on how many times, how many individual episodes of domestic violence a person has to go through before they report it?
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, and that's the interesting fact, is because what does it take for you to finally report it? Because, you know, I've been reading up on how many times an attempt to actually leave the situation completely, but reporting it is a whole nother thing.
It's like 7 to 9 times
Wow.
Before it first gets reported.
before it first gets reported. And that doesn't mean that the person stops having a relationship with their abuser. They continue on, but that's when on average the first. That's the numbers that I can remember. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Wow.
So I have a question with that. When you've got a frequent flyer, one that comes in, and I'm not going to call it Crying Wolf because every episode is just as important as the first time you initially report. But when they keep going back and back and back, does it kind of paint the, I don't know, I guess the nature of the police officers or attorneys that keep seeing those people over and over again? Do they get numb to it, or do they feel like we got to get this and nip it in the bud for them?
Well, so you're saying the person keeps going back and having DVs and nothing's done about it, and the police keep having to come over to the yeah,
right.
You know, it's frustrating. It gets frustrating. I don't know if you get numb to it, but you get, you know, you look at it a little bit with a jaundiced eye in the sense that you have to start thinking, how much time am I going to invest, you know, into taking this case and moving it forward when I know that the majority of the time the person backs out. And it's hard to divorce yourself of that because you're not really supposed to do that, right? But I mean, we're
right.
human, and we get frustrated. It gets frustrating.
It can be. I mean, there's positions, victim advocate positions. I'm sure the state of Colorado has the same in the prosecutor's offices, where that's their sole job is to support a victim in a case, be it connecting them to services, you know, restitution, medical services that are necessary in some severe cases, but pretty much bridging that support system so they don't tend to, you know, they realize they have somebody else on the outside that they're not going to just dissolve a complaint or you know, a statement, that they actually go forward with it and they feel like that they're safe. And they have somebody there to do it, because so many times people back out. Once they report it, they go back to their abuser and they go back into that same cycle, because it goes into that reconciliation phase where everything's going to get better and he's going to love me and everything's going to be the way we need it to be.
It'll be different. And isn't that what love is for better, for worse, for all of that? I really want to interject right here because I value so much what both of you are saying. And I want to just interject and say that it wasn't until they came and knocked on the door and told me that they've opened up a DCFS case and now you have a court date because we're going to look at the stuff with your kids. That was the absolute bottom for me. My kids did not, thank you, Jesus, get taken from me. But that was the wake-up call. And what they literally told me was, you can't keep this guy out of the house. So now, I mean, you can do that. You're an adult. You want to place yourself in an abusive situation, go ahead. I mean, they didn't say it like that, but we're now here. We're going to take the kids. Now we're going to, you know, and that was a huge turning point for me, because not only it wasn't so much, it was all about my kids for sure. But there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, like it just shook me awake. So something that that was very, very important to me, and a commitment that I made to God, if you all will, with these little human beings. I was now failing at that, to the point that somebody else, that the law felt that they had to step in and help me see things differently. So that's like, that was definitely the beginning of the end for me. So they get you there, right? Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah, they do. We see it too, you know. Don't let them back in the house, and if you do, we'll take the kids. Now that's not us; it's the Department of Human Services that does those things. But I mean, whatever it takes to get somebody to hit a bottom, just like in any other other thing that goes on. Right? Yeah. I don't know what bottom it is. Having your kids taken from you, or having your abuser taken from you, because I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why women stay, and it's mainly women, but I mean men too. But why they stay is because the other person's the breadwinner, and they're going to be homeless, and they are tied to not having support because they're usually down here where they don't have any family. Right? So all sorts of many reasons why people don't leave their abusers.
Yeah,
that's true. And I think that's a way to highlight that the fact there's more than one person involved in a domestic violence situation, especially with children. So we have to be able to protect, even though it is a choice of an adult to stay for whatever motivation. So that gets it done. Hats off. Everybody has a different motivator, you know, and if it's,
Totally.
if it's the children, good, it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, I listened to the episode before this and heard your story, Tina, and I was shocked at it because you're this mouthy little Italian girl, right? Who's gonna push you around? I
know.
Scared of you, so you know what's the deal?
I know. It's crazy. You didn't even really know about that, Andrew, did you?
No, I didn't know about the abuse. No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, we had lost touch for probably about a good 5-6 years.
Yeah, we did. And then, we did. And then, but it got that bad. You know, it got that bad. It's still humbling. Like last week, I left this episode and I went home and had a little hangover, like a little emotional hangover. Like, did I do the right thing? Did I, and I, of course I did. I mean, I know that I did, and I'm sure that will happen today as well. As I was saying earlier, anyways, I don't know that I would change too much of that. So let's ask, I appreciate you as a prosecutor and giving your input with that. What a beautiful thing. We all seem to kind of work in this same community in different states. But did you have, so you've had your own little experience.
Yeah.
Was it youth? Was it drugs? Was it I want to know what motivated you to get to a point with your anger that you lashed out with somebody in a physical way?
Well, so when I was arrested for domestic violence. I don't know if I was actually arrested. I think I went in on a summons for domestic violence because I had for about 9 months a warrant for my arrest when I was back before, I don't know, it was like 28 years ago. And I was just at the end of my addiction. And I was with the person that I used with. And we just had a very toxic relationship. However, I pushed her. She went flying over a little wall. And I can't remember if she got really damaged from it. But it was she didn't do anything to deserve that. I wasn't trying to defend myself. I was just lashing out. And I like to think it was the drugs and it wasn't because I was some, POS. But, I think I was. I think I was just a POS at that point. I had lived a life of being angry and frustrated, and I wasn't taking care of myself spiritually, and I wasn't working to better who I was. I was just, in the depths of my, addiction, and I was just took it out on somebody who was standing right there talking to me. Probably said, "Hey, why don't you go get a job?" And I threw her, down, something like that.
Sorry, that's funny. Because that probably was what it was.
Can I ask, was this a one-time build-up event, or were you shocked that you had that capability, or?
I don't remember being shocked that I did it. I remember regretting it, and she said, "I'm going to call the cops," and I remember taking off. And I had not done that physical thing before, but I was, verbally abusive, for a long period of time, and I still struggle. And that's my wife. Does Andrew get out of hand and yell and scream? And I still do, and I always have to watch myself. I still say things that I regret. Do they rise to the level of domestic violence? I don't think so. I like to think no, but still, you shouldn't treat people shitty.
No.
Especially the people who you supposedly care about.
Right.
But I never had any other experience where I physically got in an altercation with a significant other. But I've done other shitty things. I cheated on them, or I disrespected them to people. I've done those kind of things.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, like when you think of the growth that you've overcome after that experience, or your, your remorse, and that it kind of propelled you into looking inside yourself more than ever, didn't it? And going, yeah, so it's not just about the drugs. It's not just about using. This relationship is unhealthy. Many years have gone by. It's not moving forward. What do I need to change about myself? Kind of a feel.
I don't know if it was that deliberate, my change, other than I would tell you that about that same time, about 7 months later, my son's mother passed away to a brain aneurysm, and I had a 4-year-old son, and I was homeless, really, essentially, and I had to get my act together, and part of that was addressing the warrant that I had.
Oh, okay.
And cleaning up the wreckage of my present and my past. And I went to counseling. I went to court, and they gave me diversion, and I went through the diversion program.
What did that look like?
And, I had a probation officer who I had to meet with. I had counseling, one-on-one and group, and I was totally okay with those things. I talked in group. I was comfortable in group, but I will tell you that I also at the same time was going to AA meetings and NA meetings, and and it was I felt like here I was doing similar stuff, right?
So you were in recovery from your seemingly hopeless state, right? From your addiction. You were in recovery and you were tackling a few things, not just did you do anger management?
Yeah, I did anger. Yeah, that was I guess that's what they call the group session.
Oh, okay.
And then I had the one-on-one, and then my meetings with the probation officer.
Did you feel
and
like
I did that for a year?
Oh, did you? A year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get something out of it? Do you feel like you were edified by that experience?
I was scared
to
get into relationships because I feared that I wasn't ready to do that. I didn't like it. Not that I didn't get into relationships. I just it wasn't something I did. I was worried about it for a long time. I worried about Andrew the jerk, and didn't want to be crappy to another individual. I was scared, I guess would be the. So I dated some. I didn't date a lot.
I think there's. Go ahead, Charmaine. Sorry.
Did the individual counseling help with maybe unraveling some of the facts of why you had Andrew, what built Andrew to where he was that day, or was it more like the support system that you were building in AA, NA, things that you could identify more with?
I certainly remember AA more than I remember my individual counseling sessions. But, too, I did it, and Tina could attest to this. I mean, when we were in the midst of that program, that's what we did all the time. I mean, that was at least my social group and my recovery, a lot in there.
Yeah, we did that, and we drank a lot of coffee, and we watched a lot of movies.
Yeah,
we would stay up late on coffee, and we lived in the desert, and it was really hot, and we'd be out till the bars closed. We just weren't drinking.
Right.
So
I got to be honest with you. I mean that whole newly sober, being in the program, even that whole aspect of going to counseling and stuff was all I thought wonderful. It was really great. I finally had hope that my life was going to get better, and it did. It got infinitely better.
Ditto. I agree, and I can attest to that because as you were talking about it, and I know you've told me about that incident before. That's just not the Andrew that I know. I can't imagine, but I know you probably can't reciprocate that because when I say I get angry, I know you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly who she is. But it's true. I know that. I'm not in any denial. about that. I just wear everything out on my sleeve. But I just want to say that incident you said it happened like 27 some odd years ago, and now look at your life. I don't think that we need to just like go, okay, this guy's a perp and he's never going to be anything different, which there might be truth to that. If somebody is in denial about being an abuser, that's somebody you can easily give up on. But when you see somebody who makes a mistake like that and then betters their life, I mean, this is almost a full circle moment for you, because now you're an attorney. You've not only educated yourself, you have stayed sober, you do not engage in that type of behavior anymore, and you have this awareness, and that's a cool thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, from the grace of God, have stayed close to the idea that I needed to improve on myself. But you talk about other people who, may not, who have relapsed maybe on drugs or had gone back into an abusive relationship as a victim. I know you don't like that word, but gone back in, or, started abusing again or whatever. I think that there's always what do you call those things when somebody has an epiphany and they become better.
Like a light bulb moment. Yeah,
like an awakening. Yeah.
Maybe you can't. I don't want to be your friend anymore, but I'm glad that you're the way you are. If you're the victim of an abuser or something, everybody has the ability to be better. I think.
Oh yeah.
I put a guy away for prison I didn't put him away. The system did, but he's there for life because he murdered his girlfriend. Oh. And I never want to see that guy out on the street again. There's just some things that you don't deserve to get back into society, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But, his family thinks of him as a person that they still love. That's just,
that's forgiveness, probably. No, I totally agree with you. You're right in line with what I was saying, because I think there was a part of me that wanted anybody who hurt me, I wanted to believe that they were better than that. I also want to believe that I'm better than the people that I've hurt. Like, I'm better than that behavior as well. And the only way I get better at that is by really acknowledging it for what it is. Behavior reveals itself, whether it's good or bad, or I tell my daughters this all the time, Marissa and Samantha. I tell them, look, your behavior always reveals itself. If you're going to be a liar, like if you want to practice lying, go right ahead. It's going to reveal itself. It comes out always. And I remember telling Samantha that so many times, and she would get busted doing stuff like through no effort of my own. Like, I never even had to go searching out, catching her doing something, some teenage something, against the rules, that just would find me and let me know on its own. And she would be like, why is that happening? Because bad behavior, reveals itself. All behavior really does. I really want to say thank you to you, Andrew. Not that I'm ending. Well, we are ending soon, but thank you so much, because it takes courage to do that. It takes courage to talk about being on either side of this situation, being abusive and being abused, and it's ugly stuff. And I'm really grateful that you came on and you talked about that with us and had the courage to do so. Bravo. Thank you very, very much, Andrew. We're going to hear from Andrew again. He will come back and visit with us on other topics, because I happen to think that Andrew's funny. He's dry and funny.
Right, you gave me a really good topic to talk about. I mean, there's no
to be funny about, right? You have to come in the studio and it's like a metaphor. Like, you had to completely get naked before you could, do anything else.
Yeah.
You have to give us your.
You couldn't even dip your toe into the water. We actually made you dive right in.
Yeah, you have to become your most vulnerable before the 100 listeners we have. Before you can actually be appreciated for being funny. What?
Everybody in the court system here knows that Andrew Hayden's a recovering drug addict. They all know. nobody's, if they don't know, they haven't been paying any attention to what I say inside the courtroom. And that is, we're only as sick as our secrets.
I know.
And that's the truth, right? So,
Yes.
Did I act abusively? Am I, at times been a POS? Yes. But I don't want to be that way anymore.
Well,
And the
you're
only
not
to
that
do
way
it is
anymore.
hell on
You're
myself.
You're beautiful. Thank you for joining us. It is time to say goodbye, wackos. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next time.
You've been listening to Whack-A-Mole with Tina B and Charmaine G. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Watch us on YouTube and subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Join us next time for, well, whatever may happen with Tina B and Charmaine G on Whack-A-Mole. This has been a production from A Podcast Studio.